It's time for the moment you've been waiting for. Introducing the Dynasty Degens podcast.
Hello and welcome to Dynasty Degens episode 15. We are talking camp hype today. We are talking about players that you've been hearing about for the last 3 months. I know it's been a long off season and we're finally coming to a close. We have preseason coming up on Thursday. So we're really winding down on all the camp hype videos. We are here to tell you about who you should be holding on to, who you should be selling. Before we get into that though, I'm going to introduce my co-host, JC. JC, how you doing tonight?
I am doing well, nerd. Pleasure to be back as always. Episode 15, the Tim Tebow episode, if you will.
I was going to wonder what player you're going to hit on 15. I was like, okay, we had Gabe Davis, we had Diggs, and then you went Tim Tebow on there.
We were going Tebow because we saw all the training camp videos of him with the Jaguars when Urban Meyer gave him a camp invite as a tight end, and that was a lot of fun, and people were cautiously optimistic that maybe, just maybe, Tim Tebow might be back in the NFL, but alas, he is not. He's an analyst on ESPN, so good for him. Wish him all the best, but let's get to our guest, right?
Yeah, it is always fun when there's like a positional change, like when Kelvin Benjamin came back as a tight end, only he was like 500 pounds. Like he came back like a tank. And he had like his belly hanging out in pictures of camp hype, and he was sitting there trying to run like little like outs, and he just kept falling. And I love camp. But yeah, so we did have a cancellation, so last minute cancellation, which actually is a blessing. We have somebody from our team joining us, so he's making his Dynasty Degens debut. So he does a lot of great work for us. He is always grinding. Doing the videos. He actually made that SpongeBob intro that you guys got to check out right there. I love this kid, and I'm really excited to have him on. It is Matty Poole at 5starMatty on Twitter. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
I'm living the dream, man. Just got back from the gym, feeling good, ready to talk camp hype, which I like to avoid usually, but here we are talking about it.
Yeah, you got a nice swole on before you hopped on the pod. So you got, you wear the extra tight shirt so you kind of can flex it a little bit and get the nice little like.
Trying to anti-Calvin Benjamin right now, man. Trying to go from Calvin Benjamin fat to Calvin Benjamin drafted. So got to get back to 2014 Benjamin.
Well, I know you haven't made your debut, so your first time on the pod. We do like to go over backgrounds of people. So anyone that comes on the pod, we just like to talk about how they got into fantasy in the first place, like how you jumped into the space and what really got you started and everything.
Yeah. So I had a really good friend that I worked with. His name's @JerrySin DWZ on Twitter. He's part of the Dynasty Warzone podcast. And he actually convinced me, because I loved fantasy football. I just played on Yahoo leagues with my friends. He told me that, if you like fantasy, you should try Dynasty. I was like, what's that? And he goes, you keep your players. And I go, that sounds fantastic. So in 2016, I made my first Dynasty league with all my friends. And here we are now in 2023, 7 years later. I like to think I learned a thing, but, I still haven't. Still making rookie mistakes over here, trading, for Sky Moore, trading way too much. But it's part of the game. It's just so much fun. It's a social thing, I find Dynasty to be the social aspect. It's not just a game. You make friends that you can message whenever, and you can send shitty trades to them. It's great.
Yeah, honestly, it's a nice network. I probably talk to you guys more than I talk to my wife most days, because it's just constant back and forth. We're talking trades, we're talking content, we're talking everything that we're about to do or try to get into. So it is fun. It can consume you. I don't want to call it an addiction, because I like to say I'm not addicted, but I lie to myself all the time. So how many Dynasty leagues do you think you're in right now? like ballpark number?
I mean, with Debbie combined, probably about 16.
Okay.
That's probably on the lower side. It's probably about 20, but I'm gonna say 16.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good number. I feel like I'm hovering around the 20 mark. I try to stay at that number, but I'm addicted to startups, so it's really about the chase more than anything else for me.
I never get to hear from JC because he's never like talking in chat or anything. He's a very quiet guy. How many leagues are you in?
It's like a cool dozen now at this point, dynasty wise, and then a couple of Devi, like 2 or 3, I think, and then our first C2C. So like 15 overall in a redraft with all my buddies from home. That's going into year 14. So I've been doing fantasy football for like half my life. So love it.
Yeah, a 14-year league is unheard of nowadays, especially with the way that like most analysts deal with leagues where they go for 2 years and they just trash the league. That's pretty common in the space. So having a league with the same guys for 14 years is pretty incredible. Maddie, before we get into the show topic today, we like to talk to everybody about their favorite TV show. And then from that TV show, what's the character on that show that would make the best fantasy manager? So who would you take from your favorite show that would probably kill a dynasty team?
My favorite show is I Think You Should Leave on Netflix. And that
we've done this before. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think based on the sketches, that's hard. There's so many sketches. I think it would be the 55 burger guy because of how manipulative he was to start the pay it forward chain and then drive around the drive-thru and order everything on the menu 55 times. That's like going and just setting like a trade to get it done, like a nice trade to the other person, then signing another one, be like, all right, I took this one, you take this one now. Like, that's pretty manipulative. I think he'd be a good dynasty owner.
Yeah, we actually had Chuck Bass on, and he had this idea to put everything in the chat. What was it, Chat GPT or whatever? So he put us into it, and we actually read it at the end of his episode, and it was definitely interesting. I feel like that was one of the first episodes we had to put a giant disclaimer on that it's not safe for kids because it got very strange at the end there.
Love to hear that. That's Chuck, man. I love Chuck.
That's a hard show to like find a dynasty manager because it's the same dude that's doing all the sketches. So it's like Tim Robbins that, is all his characters. But yeah, we went over that show in detail with Chuck. So what have you watched it yet, JC?
I regret to inform the two of you I have not seen it. No.
Yeah.
It's a hard watch the first time through. Like the first couple episodes, you'll sit down and watch and you're like, what am I watching? And then you're like understanding the humor behind it of like, this is social situations that you should never be in that he'll put himself in. It's like the first episode that I watched was this guy in an interview and he goes to leave and he pulls it. And the guy who interviewed him is like, oh, it's a push. He goes, no, I'm pretty sure it opened both ways. And he just keeps pulling it and pulling it with so much effort. And he's like drool coming down out of his mouth. And the hinges just rip off the door. And he's like, see, I told you it went both ways. And he walked out. It's just one of those shows.
It's like very similar to like obviously lower budget, but Tom Green show. If you ever watched the Tom Green show when you were younger, no? Doesn't hit at all?
No Tom Green for me either. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like cringy comedy, but it definitely it's a hit or miss. Like some of the sketches are just like that's awful, but then other ones you're like, well, that was absolutely hilarious. So it's pretty good. I wouldn't say he hits every time though, so you kind of have to wade through the bad ones for the good ones. But let's talk some camp stuff. Let's get into this real quick. So we are doing news or noise. So we're going to take a player, talk about, their hype, what we had for expectations, and then what the camp hype has actually done for them and whether that's justified or whether that makes them a screaming sell as far as, if you're going to hold them or sell them. So we're going to start with rookie tight ends. And the first name on there is Dalton Kincaid, somebody that I think most of us were pretty high on coming in. His camp hype has been pretty stable, like he's doing really good stuff in that offense. We are seeing a lot of, at least positive feedback in his camp. So Dalton Kincaid, is he somebody that we see rising in value, or is this his peak value right now? JC, how do you feel about him?
Yeah, I'll take Dalton Kincaid because the next rookie tight end, it's just going to be Matty talking on a soapbox for the next 5 minutes. So Dalton Kincaid, it's interesting because if you think about the tight end position overall in fantasy football, there's over 100 guys that play the position in the NFL, and like 3 of them are actually like elite assets that you actually want on your team. TJ Hawkinson has a little bit of value, just like Dallas Goedert and George Kittle to an extent. But by and large, you want the 3 guys. If you don't get them, the tight end position doesn't really matter. So Dalton Kincaid being taken at like 109, like in a tight end premium, 108, I think you're probably already looking at him being somewhat close to his peak value already as it is. Could he get into the Travis Kelce tier or the Kyle Pitts, Mark Andrews? Sure, it's possible with Josh Allen as the quarterback, but I don't know necessarily with Stephon Diggs being there for the next couple of years if we're going to see Dalton Kincaid as a number 1 option in an offense for at least the next couple of years. So I think you are drafting him somewhat at his ceiling right now as like tight end, like 6 off the board in the startup.
Yeah. So if you were going to move Kincaid right now, do you have any targets? Are you going to try to tier up from Kincaid? Like, I think that's what I've always suggested on doing, is taking Kincaid and trying to go up to like a Mark Andrews or even a Kelce if you're going to go all in for that year. I mean, to a Pitts, do you feel good about that, or would you rather hold Kincaid?
Yeah, those are the 3 that I would tier up to. I don't think I would make a lateral move to like a Kittle or like a Waller or a Goddard or something like that. I would probably just hold on to Kincaid because like I said, I don't think the value is going to change all that much. I mean, I also don't think it's going to go down. I think you're roughly going to have Kincaid right where he is for the next few years because of the aforementioned quarterback play and Josh Allen. But yeah, like you're not going to trade him for a 1st-round pick if you're drafting him in the 1st round because it's a net neutral trade. It doesn't really matter. You would want something else on top of it. So I would much rather tier up as opposed to trading back.
Yeah, I agree. I would take him and go up, but not go back. I do have to temper my expectations with him. So I think people are vaulting him into already like the Kittle and that range right there. Like they think he's probably even with a Kittle right now. And I don't think he's going to have that consistency. I think he's going to have a good year, like by and large, but I personally think he's going to have he might have an 8-point fantasy game and then he might have a 14 and then he might be up and down almost like a George Pickens-esque like rookie year where you're going to see like a boom bust from him. Because I think he is going to be competing with Diggs a lot. We're gonna see James Cook get involved in the passing, in passing in general. Like he's going to be more involved in that. And then I don't know who else is going to get in. I think Khalil Shakir is going to be in there, but he does have a pretty open. Like, I mean, he's going to be looking at a decent percentage for passing as well. But we're going to move on to the next rookie tight end, and that's going to be Laporta. So I know that's your guy, Matty. Is Laporta somebody that you think is going to rise in value even more after this camp, or is he somebody that's at peak value right now?
I mean, he's at what, like a 10th round startup pick, 9th round startup pick value. I think we'll see him go earlier next year in startup picks, but I'm not sure if he'll perform to his ADP, if that makes sense. I think he'll show flashes enough to value him higher, but I think within the first 6 games, we can expect to see him play a lot more than get more targets, get more receptions. And I think we'll see him do a lot with the ball after the catch. He projects well in the Lions offense. They like to get their guys in space, similar to how the 49ers use their guys. So without Jamison Williams, they're going to have to rely on their rookie tight end, Sam Laporta, or they can, rely on Josh Reynolds or, it's going to be hard without those Jamison as their wide receiver too. So I think Sam Laporta is going to get a lot of slips the way Ben Johnson likes to run his offense, he likes to use misdirection. So we saw Brock Wright get a 50-something yard touchdown last year against the Bears to put them in the lead. I think we're going to see Laporta get some trickery, and I mean, he has really nice hands. So the fact that like Laporta was considered some teams tight end 1 over Dalton Kincaid, I like his value where it is right now. I'll be drafting him where he is. I like Kincaid a lot as well. I am trepidatious though, because he has the back injuries in college. Back injuries, as we know, they don't really go away sometimes. Like, they're serious. So if the doctor says he's fine, I'm fine with it. I'll go and get him. I have him in a couple spots already, but I had done some research on rookie tight ends who played for 3 years in the NFL, and from draft position 16 to 32, none of them finished as top 5. None of them finished as a multi-year top 10 starter as well. So Dalton Kincaid can break that. I mean, he's good enough to do that. But I like Gabe Davis this year. I think he's a little forgotten. And I also like Shakir. So they have a nice wide receiver trio there, and I think they'll use them effectively. And then you look at the Lions offense, and they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a target hog. But that's about it right now besides Gibbs. You're looking at maybe Amon-Ra, Gibbs, and then I guess Laporta is their top targets on the team. So I do like Laporta, but I'm going to temper my expectations.
Yeah, I agree. I think Laporta is definitely going to get a lot of looks. The only worry I have is that he's going to be playing in the same side and mostly like in the same area of the field as Amon-Ra and also Gibbs. So if we think Gibbs is going to be that high profile catching back that everyone has him projected to be, I feel like it's going to be a dogfight for targets in that area of the field, at least, because they don't really have a vertical guy until JMO comes back for the most part. But let's move it to rookie wideouts. So a guy that is steadily rising for a lot of people. They have him neck and neck with QJ. Some people have him above Addison right now. I'm seeing a lot of crazy takes. They're drinking the juice, and that's Zay Flowers. So Zay Flowers is getting a lot of hype. Like there's that story where he was the first guy projected on the offense, but there was also the entire offense was hurt, so nobody was really taking into account that Bateman and OBJ weren't even practicing at this point in time. But Zay Flowers hasn't really moved for me. Like I do like Zay. I like Zay a lot. I have been burned by the Baltimore Ravens quite a bit, and I do have that in my mind. Something about dynasty managers is if they get burned by the same organization over and over and over again. So when Marquise Brown burns you and then Bateman burns you, you kind of have to question Zay Flowers for no other reason than, it's just repetition, and it's been, heartbreak after heartbreak. I like Zay. I think he's going to be a good PPR guy. I don't think he's going to be the ceiling guy that we see QJ possibly be. Like, he doesn't have the ceiling that he has. And there's also a lot of competition there, like especially if Odell Beckham Jr. is healthy and Bateman stays healthy as well. That his value is reliant on those guys not being healthy this year. And that's the reality of Zay Flowers. Like, I think he's going to be great, but Andrews is going to be working on that in that same part of the field with him as well. So I think people are really excited about what they hear in camp, but I also think that Zay Flowers could be a great sell, and I would absolutely sell him for QJ with maybe a plus on top of QJ at this point in time. Like, I think you could probably get a plus. You might even be able to sell him for Addison straight up right now. I don't know how you feel, JC. What do you think about Zay Flowers right now? Would you move him for another rookie wideout, or would you hold on to him?
Something interesting that you brought up is that team, like, owners feel burnt about certain teams, and they'll typically try to fade those skill position players for all the hype that we've gotten on the Todd Monken Ravens offense. If you go and look at Dynasty Startup ADP right now, Lamar Jackson is like 109. So like he's being taken later than he has gone in seasons past. Rashad Bateman is a 10th round pick after being like a 5th or 6th round pick in Dynasty Startups last year. Zay Flowers got taken in the exact same range as the aforementioned QJ and JSN and Jordan Addison, but yet he goes 2 or 3 rounds later than those 3 guys. So we're seeing that people are fading the Ravens offense despite the fact of the overall optimism that people have for this new offense coming in. I think Zay Flowers is a good buy right now, personally. If you are drafting the same range as those guys, if you have the quarterback with the contract, with the new offense coming in, with an aging wide receiver, overall, I think he's a guy that you want to get in on the ground floor on. And I think probably somebody that isn't being talked about a lot in this system outside of the wide receivers is Isaiah Likely with that 6'3", 230-pound frame. We just recently saw what Todd Monken can do with the tight end of similar measurables. I'm not saying that he's Brock Bowers, but I'm saying that he could potentially be used creatively in that aspect as well. I wouldn't be counting on Odell Beckham Jr. for the long term. Rashad Bateman's foot's still kind of banged up right now. We don't know what's going on with that cortisone shot. So overall, I think Zay Flowers is going to creep into like that 16% target share that Hollywood Brown had as a rookie, as that deep threat. And it's something that we saw Zay Flowers really excel at in Boston College as a senior. He really stretched the field a lot more than he had in previous seasons and kind of added that added element to his game. So I like Zay Flowers as a buy compared to the other rookie wide receivers right now.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. Yeah, and not to say that my sell Zay Flowers pitch was that I don't like Zay Flowers' game. I do enjoy him, but I don't think he has the ceiling that, QJ. I personally am going to go, if I'm going to go in that range for a rookie wideout, I want a ceiling guy. I want somebody that's going to get me monster points. I want somebody that's going to get me consistent points. I think he could. Like, Zay Flowers could profile as like a discount, Antonio Brown. He has that same skill set. He has that same build. But I just do not think that he is going to be used in that role, in that offense. But I mean, I think he's good where he's at. But I think I would take the next guy that we're going to be talking about over him all day, and that is Quentin Johnson. And he's also somebody that came off as a body catcher, and people were fading him because, he wasn't as consistent as some of the other rookies in his senior year. He did kind of fade out and in certain games. But Matty, are you buying into QJ right now? Or are you going to be selling him?
He's going around the 5th round in startups, and Zay's in the 6th round. If I'm doing a startup draft, I'm going to double tap Quentin and Zay in consecutive rounds. But if I'm trading for them, QJ's price is very high right now. If for a rookie, that's very risky to invest that much right now. As someone who's invested in players that haven't panned out before, like Sammy Watkins, who did great for a couple of years, but he just fizzled out due to injury. I'm okay with letting someone else assume that risk right now, and I'll pay next year before he goes into a second year, because second year is when you want to buy these rookie wide receivers. I mean, you're looking at players like Treylon Burks and Sky Moore. Treylon Burks was such a good prospect coming out, but the way the Tennessee Titans used him, he had to learn a whole new position playing in that offense. I think Quentin's going to be playing in the slot. It seems like coming out. He's listed as their 3. That just is assuming Mike Williams and Keenan Allen play all 17 games, which when has that happened since they've been together? So I think QJ is in a very good opportunity to earn a lot of targets this year. But at the same time, there's still the risk with QJ associated with the fact that he does body catch. Like, he hasn't done that in camp. I do think he's been high pointing a lot better. But like I said, I'm not going to spend that much on a rookie wide receiver.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it could go either way. It could go the way of Burks and Sky Moore, and it could also go the way of Wilson and Olave. So you could miss the boat on a rookie wide receiver just as much as you could get him for cheaper next year as well. I know you're pretty high on QJ JC. Is he somebody that you're buying at his current price point? Or are you really just leaving it up or selling him off?
Yeah, I mean, I like where I took him at 409 in that recent C2C draft that we did. So I really like Quentin Johnston. I just traded a 2024 first, Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson for him in another league. So I've been going out buying QJ because I think that there is a non-zero chance that by this time next season that QJ could be like a top 6 dynasty wide receiver, where you have him playing with Justin Herbert, with Keenan Allen getting another year older. Mike Williams is a cut candidate. Who is going to be the number 1 wide receiver for this team in the future with 4 years on his contract, with Justin Herbert just getting a new contract too? I'd be willing to put my money on that it's Quentin Johnston and not Josh Palmer. So that's why I'm going out and buying Quentin Johnston right now, because I don't think the price is going to get cheaper. I think the price is going to get exponentially higher, because even if he doesn't hit that ultimate ceiling like a Garrett Wilson rookie season, I do think that it's a in between result, and that we do see enough flashes, maybe even like a Christian Watson flash from last year as a rookie, that we see enough wide receiver 1 weeks that we're optimistic about QJ's upside going into year 2.
Yeah, that's fair. We're going to move it on to a couple guys that were kind of rated high, I would say, this time last year, and then have really kind of faded over time, especially this past offseason, and then kind of rose again based off of their landing spots. So we're talking Jalen Hyatt first. People had him projected in the first round. They had him like way up there. Early mocks had him going like 110, 111. People were crazy. I know that certain guys in the industry had him as their wide receiver 1 of the class. I know what he is, and I think everyone knows what he is. I've talked about him in depth in a lot of pods in the past, where he is somebody that is fast, and he runs those go routes, and he works on a lot of broken coverage and a lot of release points. And if he's press coverage, then he really gets thrown off his game. But we are seeing him in camp, and he's breaking that coverage. Obviously, it's soft coverage. It's no tackle. It's 2-hand touch stuff. But, it's getting positive reviews. JC, are you in or out on Jalen Hyatt right now?
At current cost, I don't see why you wouldn't be in on Jalen Hyatt as like a 3rd round rookie pick, guy that you could get in like the 14th round of a startup. I think he finds himself in an interesting situation where they have like 8 slot receivers on the team. They have Darren Waller as a tight end. I'm not saying that Jalen Hyatt is Devonta Smith, but if you look at the body composition, they're roughly similar in terms of height and weight. He probably profiles as a guy that has the best chance of bouncing outside of the wide receiver group, outside of Isaiah Hodgins. So if you think Isaiah Hodgins is the X for the future for the New York Giants, then maybe Jalen Hyatt doesn't go there. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Jalen Hyatt probably has a better chance of getting that future X role. And if that's the case, Daniel Jones throws a pretty decent deep ball. I think Jalen Hyatt's going to be able to get behind some coverage. I think he's probably more of a best ball guy. I mean, it's one of the cringiest things you could say as an analyst, but I do think that he has more boom games and bust games as well. So I think for current price, though, get to just keep him on the roster for a year, let him develop, and then year 2, maybe he hits the ground running and some of these slot receivers go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's going in the 13th round, I believe, and he is like a mid-3rd rookie pick. So there's no risk there taking him where he's at. So he's all profit when it comes down to it.
I just want to add to JC's point. If Daniel Jones gets high at work, he'll have a better time.
Hey, yeah, that's been Matty's. He's got a nice. Actually, we're gonna drop that graphic somewhere. I think we'll probably drop it on the feed tomorrow. But Matty does some good work, and he's really like he's buying into the whole Hyatt puns at least. We're gonna go into
Great.
the Kansas City offense. Kansas City offense is an enigma to me. I have no idea what to make of it. I really don't know. There's Sky Moore, and then there is all the other guys, and it's hard to really get a read on it. They took Rashee Rice, and he's getting some decent hype. I like what I see from most camp videos. He looks to be profiling as the two, but we also haven't seen them with Tony on the team. Do we like Rashee Rice, Maddie? How do you feel about him?
I mean, are we ever going to see Tony on the team? I like Rashee Rice a lot. But I also like Sky Moore a lot. I think they're going to be complementary to each other on the Kansas City Chiefs. I think Tony will be in there when he's healthy, but that is hard to predict with him. He's the guy from SpongeBob where his bones are made of glass. I like Rashee Rice. I think last year he was injured quite a bit for his final season, which was his senior year at SMU. And he did all right still. He had over 1,000 yards, and I think it was 10 plus touchdowns on that year. And that was with an injury. I mean, he didn't run a lot of routes. He just kind of posted up on nines, and whatever he could do with slants. But he had turf toe. So, I mean, turf toe, as we saw with AJ Green, it doesn't really go away. So I just want to see him healthy this year. And then I want to see Sky Moore play as well. I mean, Rashee Rice wasn't a Power 5 guy. Sky Moore wasn't a Power 5 guy. But Sky Moore was the first non-Power 5 guy since Devontae Adams to go pro within his first 3 years in college football. So
wait, Maddie, we're going to be talking about Sky Moore. We're going to be talking about Sky Moore. Hold on. Before you break down Sky Moore, wait, because we're going to get into him in depth right now. Hold on. Just wait a second. All right? Because we got a whole segment on Sky Moore. I know you got a lot of ammunition for him.
Clinching.
We're going to hold off. Hold on. All right. Before we get to Sky Moore, I think we like Rashee Rice. I think he's also in that, like, wait and see, like where he's going. I don't think you really need to do anything with him. I think he's just a hold, and he's somebody that you just see how he pans out. You're not going to move him for a lot of value right now. If you can get crazy value, I would go for it. But yeah, I agree that I want Sky Moore in that offense as well. But move it to other wideouts currently. George Pickens. So George Pickens is always getting crazy hype. He is what he is. He's that vertical route monster. He has the big plays. He's somebody that doesn't really need to get separation. And the biggest knock on him is he doesn't get separation. But from what I see, he doesn't really need it. Are you in or out on George Pickens, Maddie?
I'm in at cost. I don't like the fact that he doesn't separate, but dude has dog to his game, man. The fact that he's like hitting Joey Porter, pulling his chain in practice, that's going to be such a fun battle to watch throughout like 30 years on the rookie contract. I think iron sharpens iron, and Joey Porter's a good corner. And, George Pickens is a good wide receiver. The dude just makes those one-handed catches that Odell Beckham made. And I'm fine with it. He's 6'3", 6'4", and he's pretty fast, but he doesn't run the best routes. I think that'll come with time. Once he refines his break off of his routes, he doesn't really have that crossover move that most wide receivers use. He just kind of runs. And I'm fine with that. I like my wide receivers like George Pickens. He kind of reminds me of a little bit of like a Galladay mix too to him. And that was good for Stafford. So, if Kenny Pickett can do what he was doing at the end of last year and just keep getting better this year, I'm in on George Pickens for the future years. Pickens to Pickett, Pickett to Pickens, that's a storyline name. And you see those work out so much in the NFL. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, well, there's a correlation between the names. They're going to work out because they're buds. So, I like it. I'm in on him.
You have to really think about the dog factor. We've talked about dogs before, but like putting the dog factor in on a player, like he is a straight dog. Like he is somebody that is going to get the ball. He wants the ball. He's mad if he doesn't have the ball. Like he's going to get the ball. At some point in time, he's going to find a way. Kenny Galladay is somebody that I've always comped him to. Like he's somebody that has that same trajectory as far as career goes, I think he's going to be a dog until he's not a dog anymore. So I think he's going to have 3 to 4 years where he's that like, I'm going to get it, catch it over you kind of guy. Like I'm going to get this ball over you. That doesn't last forever though. Like that like tenacity, it fades like in the late 20s. And then if you're not somebody that has that good route running, if you're not somebody that can keep up with that short intermittent routes where he struggles in, I think his value is going to kind of dip after that. But I like Pickens for the next few years. You know, like he might drop off like Galladay did, but I hope not. You know, he's not somebody that I'm vaulting in value. But I like him as a
Yeah.
great boom bust. He's like a really fancy Gabe Davis in my mind.
Yeah.
You know, he's somebody that's gonna
He's like a high end Gabe Davis.
Yeah. So I think he's a little higher in ADP than I like, but I like him as a boom bust, like, you know, where Mike Williams was like 2 years ago. I like where he was. I think Pickens is probably 2 rounds before I feel really comfortable with him. But let's move it. Now we're on to Sky Moore. So now we're going. Yeah, I should have segued Rashee Rice to Sky Moore, knowing that you were going to jump in on that. But
Yeah.
I know that you want the floor with Sky Moore. Tell me why we need to buy Sky Moore. Like, tell me everything that we need to know about Sky Moore. Matty is a Sky Moore truther, and he's somebody that has got me fully into Sky Moore. So, Matty, the floor is yours, brother.
I just want to preface this by saying I saw Sky Moore live by his final season at Western Michigan. It was against Eastern Michigan in Ryan Stadium at Eastern. And I think he had 177 yards at halftime on Eastern Michigan's pretty good defense that year. And I was very impressed. And that's when I first noticed Sky Moore. After that, I just kind of went and turned on the tape. And he's that guy where Western Michigan had that punt return in the bowl game, or I think it was a punt return in the bowl game. And no, it wasn't even a punt return. It was a broken play on the last second of the game. And they keep pitching and lateraling it. And then at one point they think the play's over. So the other team just runs out onto the field. And, you know, it's not over. Sky Moore still got the ball. And they pitch it back to Sky again. And he just takes it off and runs through all these people on the field and scores. So they had to like redo the play. I think it didn't count because all these players ran on the field. So I don't think Western won that game because of it, but it was amazing that he was able to just like do that. And I was just so impressed by his route running, his finesse, his breaks out of his routes, his hands. I liked every aspect of his game coming out. I was a little too high on him last year. And then I should have considered like Andy Reid wide receivers their rookie season. They don't always produce. They usually take some time, they marinate, and then they play. So I'm expecting big things from Sky Moore this year. I mean, like I said earlier, Kadarius Toney, is he ever really healthy enough to play all the games on the season? I don't know, but I know Sky Moore is a dog. I know he's funny, man. If you listen to his mic'd up stuff, pretty funny guy, and he's got special teams ability, which I like as well. I think he's to be trusted this year by Patrick Mahomes. His rookie year, he looked a little nervous. He looked a little like a deer in headlights when he was out there, kind of like Malik Willis did, but like at wide receiver. And then when you get to the Super Bowl, he's the only rookie wide receiver to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, Mike. What other rookie wide receivers can say they did that? None.
Yeah. I mean, I think Sky Moore, the selling point for me is the fact that he did not know anything about anything last year. He was very uncomfortable. He didn't know where to go. He didn't know how to be where he was supposed to be. What makes you good and trusted in the NFL is you need to know where you're going. And I think Sky Moore finally knows where he's going. So I think that's going to be a big plus. He didn't get enough playing time last year to even have the playbook down at that point in time, you know, because he was in and out of the game so infrequently. I love Sky Moore for what they're doing right now. And, you know, I think he's going to be probably rivaling Kelsey for the PPR points. I think he's probably going to be like that, almost like the safety blanket on the other side there. I think He's definitely going to profile as the wide receiver one on that team. And for a team that really didn't have a wide receiver one last year, it's going to be really nice to rely on a Kansas City pass catcher not named Kelsey, because Kelsey's not going to be there forever. They got to figure out long-term solutions for that team. I mean, Kelsey could easily play for another 3 years, but you want to really refine and develop your core for a team after Kelsey, because Mahomes is going to be there a lot longer than Kelsey is.
Well, Mahomes is already 27, 28 years old. So I mean, you gotta rebuild quickly after Kelsey. And the thing I like about Sky Moore is he can line up anywhere on the field. He's lined up in the backfield before. I mean, he does motions all the time his rookie season, which is cool to see. That's how he scored in the touchdown. And the touchdown in the Super Bowl, I just want to preface by saying that was sarcasm. By saying he's the only rookie wide receiver to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. That's not real analysis at all. I was just joking about that. But I like that Juju's no longer there. It just opens up the offense for Rashid. It opens up the offense for Sky and Tony when he's healthy. And then you also have MBS still there. I think if anything happens to these guys, you're looking at the camp hype of Richie James stepping in. Richie James is pretty productive in his time when he's played. I really liked Richie James coming out of I think it was Georgia State he came out of. Maybe I'm wrong there. Middle Tennessee State. Can't remember the exact school he came out of. It was a small school as well. And he's one of those guys that just fits an Andy Reid kind of wide receiver. So like a Jeremy Maclin kind of guy. And I like that.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do, because if Tony, the report came out that Tony was going to be healthy for game one, so either Ross or James is probably not going to be on that roster come first week. I'm not sure how they're going to play that. I'm curious. It's definitely the camp news that I'm following closest, because it's a wide open situation. Like I couldn't tell you who their wide receiver 2 is on that team, and that's one of the only teams that you can really say that about. But let's move on to the next guy. That's going to be another Moore. So we're going Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is somebody that had that breakout on the Jets his rookie year. He really had a great last half season. And then last year just kind of got phased out of the team altogether. You know, Elijah Moore was valued very high. Like in that last offseason, he was somebody that people were buying. I think he was going in like the 6th round of startups. You know, like he was like up there where like Judy and those guys were going, and people were fully in on him. They were like, all right, this is, you know, he was like where Pittman is and stuff. Like that's exactly where people saw Elijah Moore's value. Now he is going, you know, he got shipped over to Cleveland, and it seems like there's a Elijah Moore revival. And as a previous Elijah Moore truther, I am very much in on Elijah Moore having a pretty good role. Like, I don't think he's going to have a massive year by any means, but I think he's going to like have upwards of like 900 yards and have a good amount of catches this year, probably get pay dirt at least 5 or 6 times. Like, I think he's going to have a really good year and revive his value a lot. Because outside of Cooper, there's Njoku, there's who was the other guy on the outside?
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
DPJ is over there. Yeah, I like DPJ. He's a burner. He's on the outside. I think Elijah Moore is going to get a lot of work in the middle. He's going to be working close to Njoku, but I think he's great. Like, how do you feel about Elijah Moore for next year? You think he's free almost at this point in time? Like, he's obviously his value is going up, but if you got him like 2 months ago, you got him for a third at that point in time.
Yeah,
so
definitely. He plays a slot. I think he'll play there at Cleveland. I really like him coming out of Ole Miss. They used him in creative ways out of the backfield as well, similar to Sky. I wasn't very high on him last year just due to the Jets not playing him, and then him complaining. Like, obviously he's a player and he's got to do what's right for him. So wanting to get shipped away by kind of tanking his stock and then getting moved to Cleveland for a couple picks, late picks, that was good for him. He gets now to play in an offense where he can get targets and get on the field. So I think Elijah Moore has a really good opportunity this year to boom in value. And I don't know. it's going to be interesting to see because I don't know about Cleveland's offense. I think Deshaun Watson needs to step up this year and prove that he's still Deshaun Watson. And I've always liked these smaller targets, his slot wide receivers. I liked his Will Fuller kind of guys. And I think Elijah Moore can be that guy for Deshaun Watson. It just depends on how Donovan Peoples-Jones plays this year, I think. Donovan Peoples-Jones was a 5-star recruit, and you see that kind of talent translate onto the field usually. I mean, Kayshon Boutte was a 5-star recruit. So maybe something's there for him too. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, the 5-star on the outside, plays some special teams in high school. He's one of the guys I watched in high school because he played in Michigan. Electric player. So I see a pretty decent wide receiver core, including Cedric Tillman coming in as well. So I think Elijah Moore is going to be the slot, and he's going to man that position for a long time in Cleveland.
Yeah. So I think Elijah Moore is definitely a good buy for both of us. I'm going to keep the Moore train going, and we're going to go to DJ Moore. So DJ Moore is somebody that never had a quarterback his entire career. Everyone was like, he'd be great if he had a quarterback. Then he got moved to Chicago, and he has Justin Fields as his quarterback. And people are trying to paint the picture that he is going to be the Diggs to Josh Allen, and he's going to just boost up everyone's value, and he's going to become a massive wide receiver one. I think his value right now is pretty insane. Like, I think he's going in the 4th round, if I'm not mistaken. He's like ADP of close to early 4th. Like people are taking him pretty early. I am a big DJ Moore guy. I think he has great skills, and he will probably have a pretty good year on Chicago, but I'm not projecting him to have that massive boom year. I think he's definitely going to be a really solid and strong wide receiver too. I don't think he profiles as a wide receiver one this year. I still don't think that Fields is going to throw enough to really produce a high-end wide receiver one, but I am really high on Fields this year. So I really hope that they're throwing a lot more than they did last year. I think they kind of have to because of what they're doing with that offense. Is DJ Moore somebody that you think is going to boom in value, or do you think he's already where he is, like, he's plateaued? Like, is he as high as he can be right now?
I think that depends on Justin Fields. I mean, Justin Fields in 2022 threw for 149, basically 150 passing yards per game. But if you look at Jalen Hurts in 2021, who we thought like might not be the guy in Philly, he had 209 passing yards per game. That's a whole like 60 more than what Fields had. And then Hurts' progression from 209, he progressed to 246 passing yards per game in 2022 to support his fantasy weapons. So we need to see Justin Fields basically take 100 yards passing per game more to support his weapons in Chicago. But I think even now, if he just funnels it all to DJ Moore could rise in value. But I don't know, man. This is a tricky situation to predict what Chicago is going to do because it's a new offense. Fields looks the best he's had in his videos I've seen of him. He's fitting these tight window passes in that he was doing for Ohio State. I mean, he always has been a good passer. He's had some of the best technique I've seen coming out. But the question is he going to throw enough, like you were saying? So it just comes down to Fields' progression and his yards per game going up. Like we saw Jalen Hurts be a much better passer last year, but that was only like, 40-something yards per game more. We need to see Fields take a huge jump from that. So, I mean, I love Fields for fantasy, but I don't know if he'll support weapons.
Yeah, I mean, he would have to make a huge jump, and that huge jump would have to really go all to DJ Moore. So, I mean, it's definitely possible. It's entirely possible. I think Fields does make a huge jump this year. But I don't know that we're going to see all of that go to DJ Moore. It would have to be, like DJ Moore. Like we're talking 10 targets a game. And that I would love to see that, but I mean, Fields threw the ball like 10 times a game last year. So he would pretty much have to double his output. But we're going to move to running backs. We're going to try to bang these out. We're going to Rashad White. So Rashad White is somebody that got plugged on Twitter this week as being more valuable than Bajan, than Gibbs. People had him over pretty much everybody. So I think we know who made that video. We know where that popped. Rashad White pretty much fell into the starting running back position by, really lack of competition. Like there's nobody really behind him. There's Sean Tucker that is just coming back to practice from that heart condition that he had. So, I mean, somebody that I was very high on could easily eat into the workload if he is healthy. I like Rashad White because I like running backs with opportunity. I think Rashad White has that. I think he was definitely somebody that was majorly ineffective last year. Per touch, he did not wow me. He did not move the chains very often, was pretty inefficient. So I think we're talking about somebody that is working with a slightly less of an offensive line, and he's not working with Tom Brady. So there's a lot of negatives attached to Rashad White that I could probably throw out there. I do want to stress that I do like the fact that he is good short term. Like I would buy into Rashad White as somebody that could smash for this year. Like in redraft, I like Rashad White. But in Dynasty, people have him as a fringe running back one. And that's very far from where I have him. Like, don't get me wrong, he's going to boom this year with all things considered. But that is probably not going to be a long-standing Dynasty value that I could attach to him. How do you feel about Rashad White currently in Dynasty?
I think Rashad White's a lot like David Johnson was after David Johnson's injuries. Very inefficient, but gets a lot of targets. If you look at his advanced stats, the only things he was like top 12 in was getting targets and catch rate. So, like, you look at his yards per carry, yards per touch, like his broken tackles, breakaway runs, lowest in the NFL for a starting running back. This guy's super inefficient. But like you were saying, he gets a lot of opportunity. Like he gets a lot of catches. There's not going to be any Leonard Fournette this year for what we know. I mean, there's still time for them to bring a guy in, I guess, but I think he's the guy this year. And I mean, he might be the guy next year as well. So at his cost right now, I'm out. He's just expensive for a 24-and-a-half-year-old running back. I mean, running backs.
Yeah, I mean his age is up there as well. Yeah, he was an old rookie that came in. So not to say he's been abused though. He didn't have like a crazy workload in college, but he's still somebody that, like he's older than Najee Harris, I think, at this point in time. So that is definitely something that you have to think about.
I don't think he's older than Najee. Najee was a senior as well coming out, which is crazy.
Yeah, but isn't Rashad White turning 25 this year? Am I wrong?
Najee's like turning 26 this year, dude. It's
is
gross.
he?
Yeah. Najee turns 26 in 2024 in March. So not this season, but next season he turns 26. Just crazy.
Yeah, they might be pretty close to the same age. Yeah. But I mean, both older guys. But I mean, I'm not knocking running backs for their age. It's their usage that really gets me. So if they had that crazy usage, but that's still alarming that we're talking about somebody that we're just booming in value for the first time and is already older than some guys that have been in the league for 3 to 4 years. Let's kick it over to another second-year guy. This is James Cook. So James Cook on Buffalo. We are also projecting him. Singletary was replaced by Damian Harris. It's kind of like almost like a lateral replacement there. But from what we see, he's getting a lot of passing work. He is getting those chains removed from last year, and I think he's probably going to see an increase in volume. Definitely in the passing game, he probably profiles as maybe the second, third option on that team. outside of Diggs and Kincaid. I think he's probably going to be, the third look or probably have a lot of game scripts dependent workload over there. Is James Cook somebody that you're buying at current value? I would say James Cook is in the Rachaad White value. So is he somebody that you think is going to hold that value a lot longer than Rachaad White? Or is he still in that same mold where he could be replaced next year?
I mean, it just depends on my team's composition for Dynasty. I'm only buying running backs when I'm competing. And, if I'm competing, I'm buying James White. I think James White's going to be James Cook. Sorry, I get them mixed up. James Cook is going to be a thorn in the side of Dalton Kincaid owners, man. He's going to get a lot of passes out of that backfield. I think he's going to do a lot with screen games. And, Josh Allen's just going to trust him this year, I think. That being said, when you have a QB like Josh Allen on your team, he's going to steal away touchdowns as well. So this whole offense, I think, just kind of it's cannibalizing itself with the fact that they all can do stuff. James Cook can catch touchdowns. Josh Allen can run for touchdowns. So, and then Damian Harris is going to be there too, running for touchdowns because every team is following this mold where they have a bruiser and now they have a receiving back for when you're inside the 20s, you've been in your bruiser. When you're outside the 20s, in between them, you have your receiving back in just to pick up yards. So, James Cook, he's going to be a yardage beast. I think he's going to be a good guy for PPR to have. But in standard, I'm staying away from him. But who plays standard these days? Not me.
I don't think it exists. It doesn't exist in any
only on ESPN.
So, yeah, it's definitely a dying breed out there. So I think I agree with that. I think James Cook is probably a buy. They took him and they seem to love him. He's somebody that's growing in that role. So I think he's going to have a decent career over there. And I think he's only going to rise in value. He's probably going to put on a little weight and hopefully be able to work between the tackles a little more like his brother. Let's kick it to one more running back and then try to touch on some QBs fast. But we are looking at somebody that is crazy hyped up in the camp and everything that we've seen. He was super high in Devi Darling, as I like to call them. And we're talking about Tank Bigsby. So Tank Bigsby I was just talking to JC before we came on, and I know there's a lot of debate between Tank and Etienne and what kind of workload he's going to look at and how they're going to split that backfield. Tank is somebody that runs north to south. He is the bruiser to Etienne, somebody that probably could get a lot of short yardage and goal line usage, but is pretty decent at catching passes. I am relatively high on him. I have him probably getting closer to a 60-40 split. Not to open up the season, but I think it eventually gets to that where we're talking about a 70-30, 60-40. I think he probably gets a good amount of goal line usage. Obviously, Etienne's going to get the pass work and maybe the big play. But I think if they're looking at a 2-minute offense, they might go Tank at times. I don't know how you feel about Tank. I still like Etienne, but I'm gonna say that they're gonna both have pretty good usage coming this year. What do you think?
I don't know how to feel about Tank. That's the thing. Doug Peterson's offense has supported 2 running backs before. We saw with the Eagles. They had Jordan Howard who did stuff. I think he's going to be kind of like Jordan Howard was for the Eagles when Doug Peterson was there. I like Tank. I think he's got decent athleticism, doesn't have the best burst. So he's not going to be a guy who breaks away runs like Travis Etienne does. So I think you're right about him projecting to be the bruiser there. But that being said, I think Etienne even weighs more than him. Tank's 6 foot 210. That's not the best BMI for a running back, but he uses his height and leverage really well. When he's running through the line of scrimmage, he just finds the hole really well as well. I like your cat there, man.
Yeah, this is Bacon. Bacon loves to come on the pod. He's always hanging out. Usually it's like, feed me, brother. Like I need some food right
Yeah,
now. So he'll
it's
come
late.
over and nudge me. Yeah, waiting for his food.
Yeah, I mean, for a running back, he had a decent target share coming out of Auburn his senior year. I mean, his junior year because he stayed 3 years. He had a pretty decent yards per carry. He was over 5, which is cool. But I don't use yards per carry for projecting anything in the NFL. I kind of use like their target share and their dominator rating. And he had a decent dominator, nothing too crazy. But they also had Jarquez Hunter, who was there, and he was great as a freshman. So, RIP to Jarquez Hunter's Debbie value, by the way.
Yeah.
But Tank Bigsby's a guy I'm in on at cost because I think he's pretty cheap for a 3rd-round running back right now. But also, like, we've been burned by so many 3rd-round running backs recently. It's kind of hard to trust any of them this year.
Yeah, it's funny that you said Jordan Howard because I was just talking about him the other day and like how much heartbreak he caused me because Miles Sanders was taken pretty high. Like I remember taking Miles Sanders in the 1st round of rookie drafts, like way up there. So I mean, I remember watching Jordan Howard like plod his way into the end zone countless times. Like he would have like 3 touchdown games. Like if you're projecting him to, if Tank's going to be a Jordan Howard that year, that would be awful for ETN owners everywhere because he was like, he would destroy my weeks, like waiting and like Miles Sanders would get a giant play and then all of a sudden Jordan Howard would come in the goal line and just fall into the end zone. And I'd be like, oh, there goes. That man goes again.
I think the good thing I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, man. I know you said that Tank is maybe smaller than ETN, but like he does not play small at all, man. Like he is like he's a big back, even though maybe he's not big like in stature, like he plays big, like he is somebody that he knows how to use his strength and he knows how to like play between the tackles. And I think that's a game that ETN doesn't necessarily have. Like he doesn't really have that explosive, like, he's a great playmaker, but he doesn't have that like give me the rock and I'll explode through the line. He has that like I'm gonna cut to the outside, you dump this off to me, and I'm gonna run super fast. And I think there's a role for both of those guys on that team. I think they both could have value, but I think it caps both of them significantly. So I think they're probably ETN is now like an RB2, and then Tank is like a back end RB, probably like an early RB3. Like I don't know if it's going to be good for either of them unless there's an injury. So
I do think the good thing for ETN is that the roles are reversed. I mean, Miles Sanders was the rookie coming in, and he's the speed back kind of guy who was the change of pace back. And then you got Tank coming in. I think he's their change of pace back now for when they want to play slower, they want to grind the clock. So I think they're going to be playing fast most of the time with Trevor Lawrence in that offense, and the ETN's going to eat. I think ETN's got another couple of years left with good dynasty value. He's a guy that I think is criminally hated on in this because he didn't go out as a junior. He didn't come out and go pro. He stayed another year and waited for Trevor to like go pro. And like, I respect that. Like, you love college, like stay, man. But at the same time, you have to understand you're a running back. You got to like leave to get your second contract. So a lot of these running backs staying for the senior season are shooting themselves in the foot because like they don't get that second contract. But also at the same time, you can make the argument that like nobody gets a second contract at running back. You have to be like Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, at this point in time, like it doesn't really matter anymore. But when he came out, it still kind of mattered. So, it's like it is what it is. His wish came true though. He's playing with Trevor, and I do agree that. Yeah, I do agree that he has good value, but he's also being taken in the 3rd round right now. So I mean that value is pretty insane to me.
Over a guy like Kenneth Walker, which is insane too. Because I mean, Kenneth Walker, he's a home run hitter as well, but he's also big. He's 5'9", 212. ETN's 5'10", 215. I think Kenneth Walker is faster. I think Kenneth Walker is stronger. I think Kenneth Walker plays with more agility and ability to turn than ETN. And Kenneth Walker is like 5th, 6th round sometimes in these startups that we're doing. Like, I don't understand how you can see Kenneth Walker's rookie season and think Zach Charbonnet is going to take away more than Tank Bigsby will to ETN. Like, I think that we're looking into situations too much.
Yeah, I think that people aren't really thinking about Tank being close to Sharp. And I think Sharp is a lot close. I think Tank is a lot closer to Sharp than people actually want to believe.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not here or there. I think that people are very choosy when it comes to like the splits that, like, oh, he's not going to affect ETN, but Sharp is going to affect Walker. Like, how that makes sense? And it doesn't, but that's the pick and choose that the Dynasty community usually goes through. And then, people didn't watch Tank in college, and they didn't really, they're just kind of going off ADP in their rookie drafts for the most part. But let's get into a couple guys at QB, and then we'll send this off. We are probably going to touch on a couple rookie guys. Let's do Stroud first. So Stroud probably has the worst offense that he's looking at as far as rookie quarterbacks go. He is going to be having a tough time, I think, for the most part, moving the chains. I think that is going to be a low-scoring offense, and he might have his ups and downs. I think he might be somebody that has to take a lot of L's his first rookie year, as opposed to Young. I think Young will still be in that same boat. But between Bryce and Stroud, are you buying up these guys, or are you kind of moving off of them based off their ADP? So Young is probably going in the mid to late second, and then Stroud is usually like in the mid to late third. Does that seem adequate to you, or do you think these guys are going to have the type of rookie year that they're going to move up in value from this year?
That's a hard question to answer because, I mean, Houston has a lot of variables, right? Houston, I think, has a more complete offense than Carolina, which is crazy to say. They also have a nice offensive line. I think Bobby Slowick is a good offensive coordinator for them. He comes from the 49ers offensive scheme. D'Amico Ryans kind of seems like a great culture head coach, kind of like Dan Campbell was when he was hired. I think that D'Amico Ryans is going to have a quick turnaround with the Texans, which is, absurd to say. But I think they're going to turn around quicker than the Colts will with Anthony Richardson. I think Carolina is in a great situation as well in the NFC South. It's a bad division. You got the Saints. You got Desmond Ridder leading the Falcons. We got to see Ridder prove himself this year. But I think with Stroud and Young, I think they're going to eventually rise in value. They might dip next year with after their rookie season, but I think year 2 is going to be big for them both. Bryce Young, though, man, this is the best tape I've seen in college at quarterback since it's top 5 for me with Joe Burrow. He had one season, but it was amazing. You had Joe Burrow, you had Trevor Lawrence, you had Andrew Luck that I've seen. And then, I'd put Bryce Young up there with those guys, man. Like, this guy worked the pocket beautifully. Like, for being his size, I'm not concerned about it, just the way he works. Like, this dude's a dog in the pocket. Like, he can pick apart any defense that comes at him. He had SEC defensive linemen running at him, and he was fine. So I'm fine with Bryce Young at cost. I'll take him all day. I think he's undervalued right now. I think people are taking the wrong quarterback at QB1 in this rookie class, which is crazy to me to say, but I can see why. But this guy showed everything, man. Like, when he needed to run, he could run. I don't think he will do that in the NFL because he's a smaller guy, but he can pick apart any defense that he needs to. And if we're looking at like Kirk Cousins, man, like, this dude's a QB1 year in, year out, and he doesn't run. Like, we've seen other QBs not need to run in their QB1s. I mean, if you look at last year, there's 3 quarterbacks who averaged over 40 yards a game who are QB1s. So I don't know. I'm in on Bryce Young.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Bryce Young is definitely somebody that I have screamed from the rooftops that he's a screaming buy. I think he's kind of caught up to, like, he was being taken a lot later than he is now. Like, he was somebody that would go often, like in the early third, and now has climbed to like the early second sometimes, as I've seen. But that's kind of more so because, guys like Dak and Kyler have really slid back in most drafts. Like these guys were being taken way up there, and now they're Dak is almost in the early third at this point in time. So, yeah, I think they're both adequately valued. I think that Stroud, I think they're both dip. So what we see in rookie quarterbacks a lot is that they do not meet expectations the first year, and that's really just like expected. But in the dynasty community, they don't like that for whatever reason. So the ADP really shifts a lot. So I wouldn't be surprised to see these two guys like go in the 4th and 5th round next year in super flex leagues, because we saw Trevor Lawrence and we saw Justin Fields. They were going in like the 4th and 5th round as early as last year.
Absurd.
Fields was going like in the 3rd or 4th round, I think, last year. And now he's in the 1st. So, like, don't be surprised to see Bryce and Stroud dip in ADP. Like, Bryce could be like a 4th round pick and Stroud could be like a 6th round pick next year. And then also don't be surprised if they're like back in the 2nd round the year after. So I'm always advocate to buying these guys after their first year. Like, go buy rookie quarterbacks after this first year. Like, Anthony Richardson might be the only one because of his rushing ability. Like, he could have an RG3 type of year where like he can sustain the value that he has right now. Maybe. But these other two guys, like, they're going to dip in value, no doubt. They're going to have massive years, and they're not set up for that. So hold what you have and don't sell. I would never sell these quarterbacks in a 2-year window. So I would have to wait, and you might be left holding the bag. You might be left with a Zach Wilson, but I don't think that is going to happen in this scenario. But you don't know. You have no idea. But as opposed to selling these guys low, I would just always hold on to them.
I don't think we have a Zach Wilson in this class.
I don't either. Like, Zach Wilson was a big arms. I think Levis could be the closest, but I don't think even he, like, we know what he is. Like, he wasn't taken in like the 104 range of rookie drafts. Like, Zach Wilson was taken before, I don't know, man. He was like, did he go before? I'm trying to think.
Zach Wilson was 102 in a lot of drafts I was in, which is crazy.
Yeah, he went in like 103, 104 in a lot of my drafts, but there was a lot of big names that he went before, for sure. I can't think of the names exactly
Justin
right
Fields
now.
In most every league I was in.
Justin Fields was like a back end first, early second in most leagues. I think he was like way back there with like Hurts was like a 2nd rounder. Like Hurts,
just crazy.
Hurts was like 205.
Hurts was 207. Yeah. It's insane to see like these rookie QBs in the 2nd round. They never hit. And then you have Jalen Hurts come out and hits hard, like so well that these contending teams just with seconds and nothing to need on their roster, they'll just take a quarterback. They take Jalen Hurts and now they're set at quarterback again on these contending rosters, like Justin Herbert was. Justin Herbert was 107. That's a playoff team getting a quarterback. Like, what are we doing here, guys? Take the quarterbacks before your playoff league mates can get them. So,
Justin Herbert was way back there. And then, like I had like Hendon Hooker up there. If he had been on a better road to recovery and had a better landing spot, like, I could have easily seen him have really good value coming in to his rookie year. I really like him sitting redshirting for the year and then possibly getting a look in 2 years' time. But he's also an older quarterback too. So
Yeah,
I think
he's
he
what,
came
2
back
years
in.
younger than Jared Goff?
Yeah,
3
he's like
years younger?
25 right now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I was going to touch on Howell and Ritter, but they are giant question marks and they go super
They
late
are.
in startups. So there's really no point in talking about them because their value is like currently a 24 second. Like I don't even think people are selling,
Mhm.
you know, first for these guys right now because we
Yeah.
don't even know if Brissett is going to be starting over. I mean, I want to believe that's not going to happen with Howell, but I do like Howell. I like him coming out. I liked who he was as a prospect. I think he should have never went in the 5th round, but Ritter is somebody that I could take or leave. You know, like I would not
Mhm.
feel great about having Ritter as my QB2 on a dynasty roster.
No,
Um,
definitely not.
so I don't think selling or buying these guys is going to get you anywhere. But like if you're getting them for super cheap, you know, like if I could get them for like a mid to late second, I would probably buy these
There's a
guys. But
throw in on a deal, throw him in instead of a third, throw in Desmond Ritter, Sam Howell. You got a lottery ticket there. They're
yeah,
starting.
yeah. I
So
mean, I sold Ritter for Mayer, like straight up.
nice.
I think a couple days
Mhm.
ago. So it was like I'll do that all day. Like that was at
Yeah.
109, 110 for Ritter, and if he hits, he hits. But I'm happy with that return regardless.
Yeah. As soon as I saw rumblings about Josh Jacobs wanting to like get a new contract, I sold. I mean, I traded Josh Jacobs for Desmond Ritter and the 106. Turned that 106 into Jalen Waddle. Like I don't know who I'm playing with. I guess it's my little brother's friends, but like they've played Dynasty before. But
Yeah,
man, like, what are you doing?
yeah. Those
Why are you
those leagues
buying
are always
Josh
fun.
Jacobs?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, hey, I don't think that Josh
it's my
Jacobs is going
home
to sit
league.
out the whole year. That would actually ruin his
Hmm.
his market value altogether. But
Oh,
there's a good
definitely.
chance that Jacobs sits for like 3 games. He could pull like a Melvin
Hmm.
Gordon, like he did on the Chargers like 3 or 4 years ago, where he like plays half a season. A
Yeah.
half a season of Jacobs, like if he's fresh and he's coming in, like to revive your team, I'll pay for that. But yeah, it's tough because sometimes these guys sit out half a year and they're not the same player as they were. Like Melvin Gordon came back and it was the Austin Eckler show. And sometimes that
Yeah.
happens. Like what if Zamir White or somebody steps in and is a monster and Jacobs doesn't really even have a role on the team anymore? I don't think it's going to happen, but it could
No,
because
there's no way that happens.
nobody saw Eckler turning into an RB1 when Melvin Gordon
Yeah,
sat
that's
out.
true.
So,
But
or
nobody knew Eckler.
nobody knew James Conner either. Like we saw
Nobody did.
Le'Veon
Yeah.
Bell smoking cigars on jet skis like on ESPN, and
Hmm.
James Conner was running for 200 yards and catching like
Yeah.
15 passes a game, and it was just doing crazy Le'Veon Bell stuff. So you never know what a player is until they get the opportunity, and that's what's crazy about running back. Um,
That's true.
Dude, I appreciate you filling in tonight, man. I like really it was great having you because we lost JC halfway through and it would have been just me hanging out
Yeah.
by myself. So
He said he had to go
that's
get some
awesome.
milk.
He had to
So
get
we'll
some
see when he
milk
comes
and
back.
bread or whatever he was
Uh,
doing. So but I appreciate you, Maddie. Tell everyone where they can find you. Like
you
obviously, I
find me
dropped
the
your Twitter,
Dynasty.
but
Yeah. Find me in the Dynasty Degens Discord. Hit us up, try to join it. We'll get you in there. You can ask me any questions in there. I usually I haven't checked Twitter much, but I'll retweet some stuff. If you have poll questions, just tag me. But definitely join the Dynasty Degens Discord. That's what I'll say.
yeah. So we have the Dynasty Degens Discord that is growing a bit. We are doing some
It's the
changes to it. We're
fastest
gonna have
growing community in fantasy football, Mike.
yeah, so we're doing a lot of changes to it. We're going to have a lot of great stuff for your upcoming season. So if you're in redraft, we're doing a lot of fun stuff with that. Maddie is actually working on a website right now. So Maddie is getting a website that's going to have rankings, like different tools, trade calculators, and it's really going to have access to our Discord, different tiers that we're going to offer, a lot of just roster construction help, all that good stuff. So if you're in need of that, especially coming into the season, definitely hit us up on Twitter. And there's also going to be the Dynasty Degens podcast starting in the next couple of weeks. So a couple of guys from the Discord are starting up a Debbie podcast, and that's going to help us up a lot. And we're really just going to kind of grow off of that. So
some great guys running that podcast too.
Yeah, a couple of great guys. We got Noah and Hobart Whipple. Hobart Whipple has no idea where his nickname came from. And that is the least surprising thing that I've ever heard. Like when he was asked about where his nickname came from, he had no idea. How do you not know?
You said it's like
where
his
your
friend.
Twitter name comes from. Like he's just like, dude, I don't know. And it's like, how silly do you look? You know, like if somebody just like asks you what your nickname was and you don't know, but you've just been calling yourself that. Silly guy.
I've always wondered. And then he told us and I just laughed.
Yeah.
I love Todd.
Yeah, Todd's a good guy. But all right, all you Degens out there, thanks for listening. We will see you next week.